The CPI inflation report was released yesterday morning, and it was a total disaster. And I want to explain to you what happened yesterday with the Fed, what it means for you and I, discuss a few ways to protect and prepare and insulate yourself during a recession, and try to estimate just how long this pain will last. And all I ask in return is that you give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with as many people as possible that you think it will be helpful and beneficial to. And I have a very important economic update about the growing concern over U.S. railway freight being shut down this week coming up next, so stay tuned for that. All right, so the rate of inflation was 8.3% in August. And so here's the CPI inflation rates for the previous months. June, inflation was 9.1%, July, 8.5%, and now in August, 8.3%. So technically, inflation did come down 0.2%. And this shows that the Federal Reserve's tools and their game plan are proving to be ineffective. And this is a big, big problem for the economy, for the housing market, and for the stock markets. And it gets even more troubling, and here's why. The price of gasoline, it dropped in August. And this helped bring down inflation. But now we're not going to get that help moving forward in October, November, and December. And honestly, it really didn't drop because it's still higher than it was previously. It's just lower than how high it got, if that makes any sense. So they're kind of playing on words there with prices are coming down, but they're still up if you compare them to, let's just say, 12 months ago. And honestly, if anything, oil prices are expected to go up for the rest of the year. And that's actually going to make inflation even worse, which is interesting timing that oil prices are anticipated to go up throughout the end of the year, as we're about to see a huge influx in the amount of transportation and the demand for trucking, with the possibility of a railroad worker union strike. Connecting the dots here, I'm expecting to see diesel prices go through the roof, which they are already pretty high as it is, as trucking demand increases, just further worsening our economic situation. Speaking of which, Trucking Prepper actually released a video late last night about his take and some insider intel from actual boots on the ground folks associated with trucking industry, with the railroad industry, and some very important information that you guys might want to go check out. He actually spoke to a retired engineer, a retired conductor, about the possibility of these railroad companies like BNSF, Union Pacific, CSX, Norfolk Southern, attempting to bring a crew down to one man, and just how unreasonable, unrealistic, and extremely dangerous that situation may be. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can go check it out. Now, when we take a look at core inflation, and when you take out food and energy prices, inflation went up in August, with core inflation hitting 5.9% compared to July when it went up 6.3%. So in August, the price of food is up 13.5% since last year, and this is the largest increase since 1979. I know a lot of you folks out there can relate with the extremely high cost that you're feeling at the cash register, at the self-checkouts, each and every time you go food shopping. Now, rent is up 6.7%, which is the largest increase since 1986. But we all know that 6.7% for rent is extremely understated. That's just a fictional government figure, which they tend to throw around here a lot. But even so, it's the largest since 1986. But out of curiosity, how much did your rent go up in the last month, 6 months, 12 months? Drop a comment below, let me know. Electricity is also up 15.8%, which is the highest jump since 1981. And this is great news considering we're making a strong push for green renewable energy and becoming more dependent on electricity for our vehicles and pretty much everything we use today, as we try to wean this country off of petroleum-based emissions-producing vehicles and equipment, which ties into the railroad worker union strike update I plan to bring you guys real soon, with some very interesting information about the connections between railroad ownership, outside investors, and their ties and connections to the petroleum industry, the oil industry, and the EV battery-powered semi-truck industry. You guys really want to check that one out. Make sure you have your notifications turned on so you don't miss it. And health insurance is up 24.3%. This is the largest increase ever. So we're breaking all kinds of records here, but I do want to share some good news with you. So it's not just all fear-based, all doom and gloom. That's not the goal here. only reporting the news. According to the most recent Gallup poll, Americans are feeling more optimistic, and economic confidence is rising since June, stating that confidence has returned to March levels. This sounds similar to a Goldman Sachs statement that I brought to you guys not too long ago, where Goldman Sachs reported that household finances and household balance sheets were all positive and folks were in a really good financial position. I'm not sure who they got that information from, but I don't think it's the majority. Meanwhile, shortly thereafter, Goldman Sachs released a press release that they will be laying off several hundred of their employees, only to the surprise of the employees who didn't know until they read the news. Yeah. Household balance sheets and finances are in great order, Goldman Sachs. But we are seeing some improvement, right? According to the recent Gallup poll, 25% of Americans say that the economy is getting better. And this is up from 16% from just 2 months ago. When polled in July, 72% of Americans said that the economy is getting worse. So that's not as bad as 80%, right? And the majority of respondents are saying that they're feeling more optimistic because gasoline prices have come down according to the survey, which is still tongue-in-cheek. As gas prices are still high, they're just not as high as they used to be. Now, here's a list of the top 8 hacks that Americans are doing to save money. Number 8, people are cutting down on social activities. Now, this is a good thing for folks trying to save money, but it is also a bad thing for businesses and employees that rely on social activities to earn their income. Number 7, people are just staying home more. I mean, housing is already relatively expensive, and anytime you step foot out of your house, you can pretty much expect to be spending money, whether it's on food or fuel or Starbucks latte. Staying home is a cost savings measure. 6, buying less food or groceries. Meanwhile, the possibility of being forced to buy less food or less groceries is realistic for the fact that our supply chain is probably about to feel an extreme squeeze from the potential railroad worker union strike, as it does have an impact on our food supply and potential future food supply, as fuel and fertilizer can't reach farmers to replenish their crops. But that'll be another issue for another day. Buying less food or groceries ultimately just helps folks save money. And honestly, we as a country, pretty much a world, we waste a lot of food. So buying less food and groceries is actually a good thing. It'll save money. It'll allow for others to have access to more so that we won't run into a situation of empty shelves and shortages. Meanwhile, we'll become more efficient and less wasteful of the food that we have. Maybe less overeating, less indulging. Number 5, eating out less. Eating out is expensive. Don't go to Subway. They're going to charge you about $18 for a footlong that only measures 10 inches. And it's pretty much just bread and lettuce and a lot of mayonnaise. And if you go to a nice restaurant, you can expect the gratuity to be already calculated or automatically set to 25, 30, or even 35% compared to previously where it was typically 15, 20, 25%. Number 4, purchasing generic goods. And this has been a budget bargain, coupon saving hack for many years. But now folks are moving towards the store brands instead of the national brands just to save a few extra pennies. Number 3, driving less. As fuel prices are coming down, so they say, it's still expensive and transportation is not cheap. Cars, trucks, vans, you name it. They're all going up, or they were. Now we're starting to see a decline as the automotive car market bubble is about to pop. But the costs per or cents per mile for driving, whether it's for fuel, tires, oil change, maintenance, repair, it's expensive. So the less you drive, the better. Granted, if you drive an EV like a Tesla, you're saving on fuel, but the maintenance costs still exist. I've actually seen a lot of folks moving towards these electric bicycles like a Super 73. So that's an option. Number 2, traveling less or canceling vacations. First off, traveling is a pain in the butt, especially if you're traveling by air with a pilot shortage, air traffic control shortage, airport regulations, airport staff and flight attendants on edge, folks getting thrown off of planes left and right for pretty much nothing. And the add-on costs for checking a bag is just through the roof. Not to mention that there's a high likelihood that your flight will be delayed and or possibly canceled. So there's that. And number 1, spending on essentials only. Don't buy what you don't need, plain and simple. And if you have any other good suggestions, please list them out in the comments below. I think we would all appreciate that. Thanks in advance. Okay, so the rate of inflation was 8.3% in August. What does this mean and why should we all care? The Federal Reserve said that they're going to look at the inflation reports for July and August, and with this information, they're going to decide what to do on September 21st. And this is when their next meeting ends. So right now, the Federal Reserve is deciding whether to raise interest rates by 0.5% or 0.75%. Either way, it's going to hurt, obviously. A 75 basis point hike would hurt more than a 50 basis point hike, and 75 basis point hike would be worse. So the interest rate is set at 2.5%, and that's the Fed funds interest rate. And inflation is at 8.3%. And this means essentially that if you put money in the bank, you're going to be losing money to inflation, and you're going to be losing that money very quickly. This is what is known as a negative real interest rate. So it encourages consumers to get rid of that cash, to spend. And what does that do? Well, it just further promotes more inflation. In fact, the Federal Reserve Bank president of Cleveland, Loretta Mester, said that the current interest rates are still providing stimulus to the economy. And because inflation adjusted for real interest rates are below zero, Mester also said we have to get into positive territory for the real rates. And that means that we're going to have to do more work than we are right now. The Federal Reserve Bank president of St. Louis, James Bullard, said he supports a 0.75% rate increase next week. And Bullard said, I don't really see why you want to drag out interest rate increases into next year. I think you might as well do it relatively quickly. So basically, Bullard is saying, let's just do it and get it over with. Why wait? Well, the reason why you don't really want to do that is because, sure, it would potentially curb inflation, but it would probably tank every single market out there with a 1% increase, 1.25% increase, 1.5% increase. That would be 150 basis points, and it would pretty much destroy the economy. But, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. While Lael Brainerd, vice chair of the Federal Reserve, said monetary policy will need to be restrictive for some time to provide confidence that inflation is moving back down to 2%. And as the Federal Reserve continues to raise interest rates, and as they continue with their quantitative tightening, this is what's more than likely going to happen. First, it's going to continue hurting the real estate markets. Mortgage rates will continue rising for 30-year fixed. Mortgage rates are already at 6%, and it's going to go up even more. Meanwhile, mortgage loan applications are continuously dropping in volume. Application approvals are reducing. The buying and lending power of homebuyers shopping is being reduced with each rate increase, and mortgage brokers, lenders, underwriters, they're all feeling the squeeze on their income with lighter commission checks. So this is just going to make home affordability even worse. Demand for homes will decrease because less people can obviously afford to buy a house, which means that there's going to be a further slowdown in the housing markets. I know that some people are actually looking forward to a housing market crash so that homes become more affordable again. So I kind of get it, but we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. Now, here's the situation. Inflation is coming down according to the headline CPI figures, dropping from 8.5% to 8.3%. Obviously, it's not coming down as fast as we would all like. Not to mention that core inflation went up in August, so the Federal Reserve, they're going to have to stay aggressive and they're going to have to stay tight with their interest rate hikes and quantitative tightening. And as a heads up, the Federal Reserve is going to increase interest rates on November 2nd and again before Christmas on December 14th. So we can expect higher interest rates next week and then higher interest rates 5 weeks later and then 6 weeks after that, even higher, and so on and so on. The Fed is talking about continuing this into 2023, and that's just not good. This is going to continue to put pressure on the debt market, the housing market, the stock market, and even the cryptocurrency market. The Fed's rising interest rates and the tightening economic environment is going to slow down the economy. And this is the opinion of the chair of the Federal Reserve. So let's be honest. The situation is that the economy is going to get worse. And the big question is, how bad will the recession get and how long will it last? This is going to be very, very important and vital for folks who are in the retail market, the middle class workers, working class, the non-professionals, folks on fixed fixed income. All these impacts are going to affect those at the bottom more and faster than those at the top, the higher income earners. But believe me when I tell you that it will affect everyone. No one is immune to inflation. Although some are further insulated than others, inflation hits everyone. Now, I do have an important update to bring you guys about the railroad strike, the potential railroad strike, and some possible theories and reasonings behind why this could be happening, why the railroad companies are actually kind of pushing for it, and why Congress has not stepped up, why the Presidential Emergency Board assigned by President Joe Biden hasn't done anything yet, and what we can possibly expect to see happening that will ultimately hurt our pocketbooks and shift the future of this country like we've never seen before. You guys stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a like. Turn on notifications so you'll be notified when I post future videos, because the railroad strike update is coming next. You guys take care. Be safe. See you soon.